This is going to be the beginning of a series where we break down one player from every single team that we think the Mariners should trade for and could trade for. And we're going to be going through each team starting today with the National League and Cody Bellinger of the Chicago Cubs. We just learned that from Ken Rosenthal, the Cubs are looking to trade Cody Bellinger and his $27.5 million contract before the start of 2025. At the end of this video, I'm going to break down what my trade package would be for Cody Bellinger to where hopefully the money is a bit offset there because we all know that the Mariners are not going to try to take on $27.5 million. So be sure to stick around at the end and let me know if my trade package is one that you think the Cubs would accept. But for now, let's step into the shoes of Jerry Dipoto and break down Cody Bellinger's 2024 season and what he brings to the Seattle Mariners. In 2024, at the age of 28, Cody Bellinger put up a 2.2 WAR in 130 games. He hit .266, .325, .426 with a .751 OPS and a .111 OPS plus, meaning he was 11% better than a league average player in 2024. He had 18 home runs with 78 RBI. He did only steal 9 bags, which is down from the 20 that he stole in 2023. But overall, Cody Bellinger was a pretty good player. He can play first base and the outfield for you, but obviously for the Mariners, he'd mainly be a first baseman unless either A, someone gets hurt in the outfield, or B, Victor Robles does begin to struggle. Now, you already have Luke Raley, but I think that Cody Bellinger is a guy who doesn't strike out a lot, and that's really important to this team. If we look at his strikeout percentage down here, 15.6% in 2024. Overall, I think that it makes a lot of sense to trade for somebody like Cody Bellinger because you look through his years, and obviously he had a pretty abysmal strikeout rate in 2022 and in 2021, but his career he has a 21.1% strikeout rate, well below league average, and a 10% walk rate. He hits the ball harder than league average. He hits about the same amount as league average line drives, but overall, Cody Bellinger fits the Seattle Mariners T-Mobile Park quite well. You look at his Savant page, and it's really not that inspiring. He squares up the ball quite a bit in the 89th percentile. He doesn't strike out a lot, 85th percentile, but there's a lot of blue on this Savant page. His base running value is pretty high in the 80th percentile, and you can see he's a pretty good fielder. But if we look at his 2023 numbers here, and still not a whole lot. Obviously, bat speed and squared up percentage were not really stats back then, but his fielding was off the charts. His batting and his base running were off the charts. Launch angle sweet spot was in the 86th percentile, and you can see that most of Bellinger's power is to right field, which does fit well with the right field like little jet stream the Mariners have at T-Mobile Park. I think Cody Bellinger is a guy that we've all talked about quite a bit coming to the Seattle Mariners, that he is a really good fit for this team. Now again, he is making $27.5 million at the age of 29. That's obviously a number that the Mariners would not be in love with. He does have another player option after 2025 as well for $25 million. So could the Mariners realistically go out there and acquire Cody Bellinger for what would mainly just be a one-year contract if he did decide to opt out after this year? I certainly think it's possible. I think that Bellinger does make a lot of sense for the Seattle Mariners. If we scroll down here to his appearances, he's definitely been mainly more of an outfielder lately in his career, especially with the Cubs. But in 2024, he did play 22 games at first base, 48 in center field, 49 in right field, and just 94 overall in the outfield. He also DH'd 24 times in 2024. He did have an injury in 2024, keep that in mind. So that's something that almost kept him out for the rest of the season. So that definitely played into some of his down numbers and whatnot. But in 2023, he played in 59 games at first base. And again, he's always been a pretty decent defender as it is. In 2024, he had a 1,000 fielding percentage, so didn't make any errors at first base. And in 2023, a 993, so not a terrible number there either. A pretty good defender all the way around. Now in 2019, Bellinger was the MVP for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he did win a Gold Glove, playing 136 games in the outfield that year. So clearly his defensive value is much better in the outfield, but I still think the Mariners acquire him to be their first baseman. Now, we also heard today that the Mariners are interested in a reunion with Carlos Santana, which I think is something that we all knew. We all knew that the Mariners and Carlos Santana were a really good fit, and obviously Santana would be your primary first baseman if you were to acquire him. But nonetheless, I do think that Cody Bellinger is definitely definitely a higher price tag, also just a better player in general. He is a guy who's going to have a lot more versatility than Carlos Santana at first base. He's basically a better version of Luke Raley, is what you're going to get out of Cody Bellinger, who has won a championship with the Los Angeles Dodgers, has been an MVP, so he's not going to come cheap. So what exactly would I think that I would trade for him? Well, to offset his contract of $27 million, I would have to start with somebody like Mitch Garver. As of right now, the Cubs' only catcher on their roster is listed as Miguel Amaya as part of their depth chart on MLB.com. In his second year in the big leagues, Miguel Amaya hit 232, 288, 357, good for a 645 OPS. He had 8 home runs with 47 RBI. He struck out 62 times in 117 games. And while there are certainly guys in the Cubs farm system that are on the brink of coming up, they actually have a lot of prospects that are projected to come up in 2025. I do think that adding a veteran presence like Mitch Garver, a guy who won the World Series with the Texas Rangers, he is coming off of a down year, but a guy that can still definitely catch for that team. And the Cubs look like they're going for it in 25. We already saw them trade for Eli Morgan, making a trade for a catcher, whether it be a primary catcher or a DH for them, I'm not really sure. But Mitch Garver is a guy that I think fits this team really well compared to other teams, and it would take $12 million off the Mariners' book, so when they were to acquire Cody Bellinger here, it would be just a $15 million contract. Now, you're not going to get Cody Bellinger for only Mitch Garver, unfortunately, so in my deal, I trade Mitch Garver and Colin Snyder over to the Chicago Cubs, another bullpen piece for them as well. Looking at their depth chart right now, Nate Pearson's the guy they acquired at the trade deadline from the Blue Jays, who had a pretty decent year for them. Obviously, former Mariner Tyson Miller is in that bullpen, but overall, not a whole lot of well-known names here, and I think that a guy coming off a really good year, like Colin Snyder, could make a lot of sense in this bullpen, especially towards the back end with Nate Pearson. I don't think that Snyder would be their closer by any means. I think Pearson's going to remain that guy, but I do think that Colin Snyder does have a chance to fit right in there as a setup man. So Mitch Garver and Colin Snyder, and honestly, I would not be opposed to throwing in another bullpen arm in there, whether that be Trent Thornton or Austin Voth or someone like that. With that being said, on the day that I'm recording this, tomorrow is the non-tender deadline. A lot of those guys may be off the roster. You know who would have been a perfect fit, in my opinion, in this trade? JT Chargois. If it would have been Chargois, Snyder, and Garver for Cody Bellinger, I think it could have worked out. The Mariners would have saved some money this year, assuming that Cody Bellinger does opt out after this year as well. But I think my final trade package for Cody Bellinger is going to be Mitch Garver, Colin Snyder, and Trent Thornton for Cody Bellinger. The Mariners will be taking on about, I think after all of it's said and done there, $12 to $13 million, which is quite a bit of their budget, but you're getting Mitch Garver's contract off of your books for a guy who's going to be able to fill in at first base, is a gold glove outfielder, and this makes a lot of sense on this Mariners team and in T-Mobile Park. With that being said, there are a lot of guys on the Cubs that make sense for the Mariners to trade for, whether that be Mike Tauchman, Ian Happ, Nico Horner. So I think that the basis of this trade makes sense, maybe even if it's not for Cody Bellinger. It changes around a little bit if you're trading for Ian Happ or someone like that. But I think that overall, this is a trade package that fits a lot of different guys on the roster for the Chicago Cubs. I think the Mariners should definitely explore making a trade with the Cubs. And honestly, I almost expect it. I almost expect a trade with the Cubs to come out of here somewhere because it just makes too much sense. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys think Cody Bellinger is a good fit and if I overpaid, underpaid, or how my trade package looks. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.